What I'll do is I'll fill in a few things since I kind of bounced around the different breakout sessions. I know everybody didn't get to all of them. We still have Jen up here. Good. Okay. I think, Jen, one of the things that came up in the discussions on the sort of biopharma and cell engineering was around this balance between what I would say is like enterprise sales at Ginkgo, and then like product marketing was sort of how you described it. I'll give my 2 cents on it, and then I'd love to get your thoughts too. So one of the key points was the bulk of our efforts today are still very much in like the enterprise sales area. So like I'd say about 85% of our effort is go out and try to sell, and this is for the benefit of the folks that are on the call too that weren't in these meetings, sell large biopharma companies and others, large ag and large industrial, on doing what I would call like bespoke, high-end, high technology product development deals. And I would draw the comparison that in the biopharma industry, and a lot of the folks in this room are analysts in the tools sector and so forth, you do have companies that are like traditional CROs, contract research organizations, that offer what I would call, and when we talk to heads of R&D, they describe it this way, like straightforward services. In other words, work that you could do yourself, you have the infrastructure, and the main reason you're outsourcing it is you trust a third party to do that because it's kind of obvious work to do. You don't think they're going to screw it up. And that's the bulk today. I think there's some edge cases, but that is the bulk of the contract research services offered. And I think what Ginkgo's trying to do is offer these high-end discovery and high-end manufacturing R&D services that are more commonly associated with a small biotech with a proprietary technology doing a one-off deal with a large biopharma, like a CRISPR Therapeutics doing a one-off deal in gene editors. And I think what the team that Jen has built is 50 people running around selling those kinds of deals at a throughput that's closer to the type of throughput you would see in a more traditional CRO setting where you're selling a lower value, more standard product. And so I think we shouldn't sell short that. I personally think that's a huge advantage for us. It's a unique asset in the market. But Jen, maybe if you look into the future and you look at what we're trying to do on the productization side, how do you see that complementing with this enterprise sales engine we built? Or is it just kind of ride the enterprise sales engine for a while and see about the products later? How do you think about that balance?
I think they're really symbiotic in a lot of ways, right? In many cases, the enterprise sales kind of machine that we've built has opened up some doors for the product sales, right? Like a lot of what some of the large companies want to do are going to be or are the products that we're trying to build.
That's like a productized offering from Ginkgo.
Yeah, I think one would be protein expression, right? We have a lot of strengths in protein expression. We've been doing that in industrial biotech for a long time. And what's particularly interesting about that is that in industrial biotech, margins are important, right? Those kinds of products are competing against petrochemical-based products. And so we've built up a lot of capabilities for really high protein expression systems that meet those kinds of COGS. Well, that's particularly interesting in pharma as well, where you have a large biologic, and to some extent, over the years, maybe pharma wasn't worried about, let's say, margins because those margins are really high. But today we see a shift where a lot of those products are huge products for these companies, and they have an issue in supply. They can't make them enough demand. And so that's become a really interesting application for those companies where we have a real strength. We've been thinking about high producing large proteins for a long time, and now it's applied to pharma. And now we have those kind of relationships with those pharmas. We can do that enterprise sales. We can understand what their targets are and bridge those two things. So it's an example of kind of the productized sale happening in an enterprise company.
Thank you. And I would add maybe one more keys of color to that from the industrial biotech breakout session. So there was some good discussion around, again, success-based pricing, things like that, around how can we offer, as we go to these more productized offerings that are more standard, what allows us to do that? And I think the key takeaway from that discussion was it's the code base, right? It is that project looks a lot like projects we've done before. So that protein expression that Jen's talking about, we have done many projects that involved overexpressing a protein in a fungal host, right? And so when the next one comes in, it's natural for us to try to move that into a success-based pricing. And then importantly, from a different one of our sessions around operations, Jason Burnt, who's not up here, who's heading up our foundry operations, if it's similar work, we can really drive cost down. And so that also allows us, again, like the advantage on this productized side is lower cost on the programs, better, more aggressive pricing for customers. But I would highlight that's probably 15% of our commercial effort versus 85%, where I think we do have this enterprise sales engine selling what are really these bespoke R&D deals at scale, which I think is frankly unique in the R&D services market. Okay, so I'll pause for a sec. Happy to hear if, questions on any of the topics from today. Yeah, back. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for a good analyst day. This is maybe a question of minutia, but at one point, Zymergen indicated plans to potentially sell the rack carts on their own. Is that something you're considering, assuming the dust settles with the recent news this morning?
Yeah, so repeat the question. At one point, Zymergen had thought about selling rack carts. I don't know, Barry, do you want to comment a bit about this? I can speak to the business model, or it's up to you. Go ahead. Fire away. Oh, I was going to fall off. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mechanical engineer, chemical engineer.
Much.
Yeah, great question, Mark. So first of all, hopefully everyone on the tour this morning saw that automation technology. We're very excited about it. We are trying to roll it out as quickly as we can across Ginkgo platforms. We think it gives us a lot of advantages. I think when it comes to third-party sales, I think that's something we're going to continue to look at and see how that makes sense with respect to our kind of the broader business model of selling cell programming as a service. And you can imagine that there could be places where it would be very interesting to deploy that technology with partners of ours, partners around data generation, partners in other spaces. I would say our primary focus today is making sure that we are able to leverage the technology as much as possible, but we know it's an asset, and we'll continue to look at how to exploit that more broadly as well.
Yeah, and I do think I would add on. Oh, thanks. Around on the like some of the AI discussion. I think it would be great to be able to offer, like Anne-Marie mentioned this at the end of her talk, around like data as a service. Like we think that's a cool idea. I would say the general challenge with biotech, as compared to consumer tech or software tech, is like the interfaces aren't as clean. The customers don't quite trust data from one place to be compatible with another. Like it doesn't have the clean APIs that the software industry has and has built up over the last, really, honestly, since the rise of cloud computing. I think really took this to the extreme, and you now have like all these different players with technologies talking to each other. It's amazing. We're very early on that journey in biotech. Ginkgo would love to see that happen, just to be clear. And so I think we will explore that kind of stuff with partners, both on the technology side and on the customer side. But it is early. Yeah. In the meantime, it's helpful for us to even just show it's useful ourselves, because that then helps prove to others that those types of data assets may make a difference in biotechnology. Yeah.
On the biosecurity side of the business, right, are there any catalysts upcoming that we could point to just looking forward as kind of a barometer to say, here could be a potential update on the business? And then as a follow-up to that, this was kind of discussed in the breakout room, but is there potential for that business to get back to those COVID levels of revenues in the relative near future? Or is it still a little bit too early to be thinking about that? Thanks.
Yeah, so the two questions were, are there any catalysts coming up that we should be looking towards, just from a business growth standpoint or a business expansion standpoint, and then kind of like what's the timing to see how we can get back to the COVID level of revenues, was the second question. I think on the first one, we talked about it a bit earlier. I mean, very much how we are looking at this is country by country relationships. So I don't know that I would say one way or the other to look for outsized catalysts. This is something that we obviously continue to work on strategic relationships with countries. Countries are big entities, so you could imagine big things happening. You could also imagine it being a very kind of measured process. We're trying to build that system that we talked about earlier, where we are the strategic partner. And there's 195 nation states on the planet. And so, you can start filtering how many are available for U.S. technology companies to partner with and kind of go down that list. That's how I'd look at it. On the second one, I think it's an interesting moment, right? We've had 3 years of trillions of dollars dumped into a domestic emergency response. We were able to build infrastructure far more rapidly, us and others, than you would ever have imagined it being built before. Look at how fast we went from mRNA vaccines being essentially a DARPA R&D project to billions of doses scaled across the planet. So I would say on that front, that is a unique time. We fully believe that the market for biosecurity, biodefense technology products in the kind of ecosystem that we live in today is large today and getting much larger very fast. So, like a temporal prediction, I think we're probably too soon for that. But we are very excited about this transition to a long-term sustainable business, providing the technology tools that these national security organizations are going to need going forward. And you start looking, we talked about it a little bit in the breakout session, you can kind of just start timing these things. You can look at the policy statements, the FY24 budget for DoD immediately talked about a $812 million reallocation towards a number of things in biosecurity, biodefense, of which wastewater monitoring is in there. That is just an immediate reallocation on top of what they already spend. Next year, we expect that there will be continued investment in this category, so you can start pacing those things out. It's not immediate with governments, but once it hits, it is something that doesn't generally go away.
Thanks. Appreciate the color you gave on the different types of foundational models you'll be releasing. Are you willing to give any sort of expectation around cadence of releasing those models, and when these model as a service or data as a service revenues eventually come in, is this a whole new business segment, or will these be booked in cell engineering revenues?
Yeah, maybe I can take the second part of that question, and then Barry, you can tackle roadmap a bit. I think the technical roadmap is in many ways easier for us than the commercial roadmap, because we want to be very thoughtful about how we release these models for a number of reasons. Our own platform security, biosecurity, et cetera. So I don't think we're prepared at this point to give guidance on when we would be releasing a public-facing model. In terms of some of the other partnerships, I think that is something that we'll be working on in the reasonably near term. These are big enterprise collaborations, just like any other large deal we do. They take a long time to nurture and mature, but those are conversations that we're actively having now as part of the broader enterprise sales work that Jen's team does. This is one more really powerful tool that we can use when we talk to these customers, and so that is, I'd say, a nearer term catalyst or signal, I think, that you can look for in terms of the both usage and development of our AI capabilities. Maybe Barry, do you want to just chat a little bit about overall technology roadmap on the AI side?
Yes, I can. Well, first, if you look at the consumer tech companies, so the cadence there is you may have better data on this than me, but my anecdotal observations would be a new version of the underlying model every 6 months to a year. It's going to take us a little bit of time to get up to our full speed. We're not there yet. We're still building capabilities and infrastructure. I wouldn't expect that we will be iterating any faster than that cadence of 6 months to a year on the foundation models. As you may have heard during the AI chat, we're also going to be balancing our efforts across foundation models and fine-tuning, and so you may expect that we will be shifting that focus depending on where we think that there's the greatest impact to be had. So I don't know. It's a little bit early to say exactly when the next big advance is going to come on our foundation models. But yeah, because we're going to be going back and forth between those, and a lot of it will be deployed against internal commercial programs.
And maybe just one other piece I'd add, Jen was talking a little bit about productization. One way that we can imagine using some of these AI tools is helping with some of those interface challenges that we otherwise sometimes deal with our customers, and how can you simplify the interface of what a customer wants to what the Foundry can deliver. I think those are the sorts of products that are AI powered that you could imagine us releasing on a much shorter cadence. It's not quite as dependent on the bigger infrastructure challenge. It is more around how do you translate what a customer needs to something that our Foundry can understand while bypassing a lot of the normal kind of program management in infrastructure and architecture. I think that might be a quicker win.
In general, right now, again, I mentioned Jen's built this great enterprise sales team. I think it is a unique asset on the market, but it requires us to go out, interact with a scientific team, work out a joint project, have our scientists run that project here on top of the platform you toured today, plus the computational tools. And so that is it's clear we are delivering value. We are signing up deals of that sort. It is clear, I think we uniquely can go out and close deals like that at scale because we're doing more of it than anybody, but it is a frictional thing to have to sell through. It would be a lot better if their scientists could just leverage all this stuff, right? That I'd like to do it. It is technically difficult today, right? It is just using this place requires a whole level of training that isn't the same training, you get when you're doing your PhD, or even if you've been working at a more traditional pharma biotech or an industrial biotech that doesn't have access to our scale of automation and infrastructure. And so I can't train the customers on that, and thus they can't really use it. And so here we sit, right? But it's potentially true that maybe with these types of tools serve as an interface, like Sean was mentioning, that basically connect. It's a better interface into that platform. That would be a better way, potentially better way for us to sell. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Jen.
Yeah, and what I wanted to comment on is just the importance and the value of what we can use today that we're building. So there's one world where we think about what we release externally or how we change that interface, but we're going to, and we are, when we will be, applying those advancements to our internal projects that we are doing already, to customer programs that we have planned revenue, that we're working on delivering now. And I'm really excited about that because I think it brings some acceleration to those efforts that customers will see soon.
This is why I wanted you to see the entire executive team today. So there's a nice balance here where Jen appreciates we need to deliver on revenue targets, we need to deliver on program targets, we have a way to sell these things with our enterprise sales team, and the AI tools are going to help that. They're going to help us get meetings to sell, they're going to help our program teams more efficient today. Separately, as Barry was joking about earlier, it would be nice to unlock a less frictional interaction to our platform over time in the biotech industry, just like AWS was able to ultimately do with cloud compute and the software industry. We should work on those things too, because those pay off massively, on a 5-year time scale, right? But we should make sure we keep adding customers and scaling. So thank you, Jen.
We have one question coming in online. Ginkgo is loaded with cash in a very interesting time. You have said in the past that having cash opens opportunities. Are you seeing opportunities present themselves that look interesting? And this comes from Mark Didovic.
So Anna Marie, in addition to being our new head of AI, is still heading up our M&A efforts. So so the question was, we have a lot of cash. It is a particularly opportune time in the biotech markets, I would say, especially. There's a lot of assets that have been radically repriced over the last couple of years. Do we see things we're interested in? How do we think about that?
Sure. So I do think, maintaining this kind of conservative balance sheet does give us the ability to make some of these big bets that are transforming our business. It is what gives us the ability to really lean into AI and open up these opportunities, and certainly allows us to take advantage of a market like the one that we're in today, which isn't fun for anybody, but for somebody that's well positioned with a strong balance sheet, it does give us the opportunity to play. And what we're seeing is that when cash is tight, companies tend to focus very, very, very quickly, and they focus on, in the case of biotechnology companies, their lead asset. And that creates a real opportunity for Ginkgo to bring on board platform technologies that have broader potential at very attractive prices. And so that is definitely still an area where we're spending a lot of time. Jen and I collaborate very closely together to identify the areas where we are seeing a lot of customer demand and where we are facing the choice between we could go run, an internal R&D program to do a giant screen of CAR T cells or something, to help create a data set that a customer, would find really valuable, or, would it be faster to go bring in an asset that would help unlock that segment of the market a lot faster. And so that to me is still a real opportunity that we're seeing in the market right now.
Are we on time? Wrap up.
We're right on time.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
I would maybe just add one other takeaway I thought was interesting. I think from the AI panel, it was interesting, Sean, to hear about sort of this boot camp for customers idea. I do think like that, again, general direction of how do we make all this technology more accessible for our customers is something I think AI will open up. And I think also, Anna Marie, you made this point in your talk, and I think I'll leave you with this takeaway, as exciting or scary as it might be. All these AI models that are being trained on the English language, as Anna Marie said, are competing with us in our own domain. Right, so like they are competing with a lawyer at Ropes and Gray with 15 years of experience working in contracts, a thing humans invented, on top of the English language, which co-evolved with our own brains, actually, over the period of times that language developed. And we're expecting these computer brains to be as good at us at that, and they're not. Biology, DNA, is sequential code. It looks a lot like a book. There are an enormous number of said books out in nature that are fully written over the last 4 billion years. Humans did not write them. Okay, we cannot read them. This is the best place in the world at writing that kind of language, and we're still not very good at it. So these models may become better than us, may become sort of superhuman in this domain much sooner than they do in the natural language domain. And I think that could be quite exciting for biotechnology broadly, because, and we spent a little bit of time touching on this today, biotechnology is living in a world where the consequence of the fact that we didn't invent the medium is that every product development project, like developing a product as a company, is considered research. I don't know that there's any other industry like that, where like the product development cycle is considered a research cycle, where it just might not work at all. All right, and that is not our fault. It's not biologists' fault, bioengineers' fault. It is the fault of working with a substrate that was not invented by humans. We're the only engineering field like that. All the rest were built by humans. And so I think AI, in its ability to understand complicated things not designed by us, could be the chance for biotechnology to ultimately turn into something more predictable, where product development is actually a product engineering process. It may be that these tools help. Frankly, it is the thing, in combination with large-scale data, that I would say, Barry, since we got involved in synthetic biology 20 years ago, I think it's the most inflective thing since some of the very early theories, like abstraction and automation. Yeah, and so it'll be fun to see. We appreciate all of you joining us for Investor and Analyst Day, our first one here. I'm so glad you got to meet the wider management team. I want to give a special thanks to Megan and the team for organizing all this.